Welcome to Your Nonprofit Power. I'm Amy Fazio, and I'm so excited to be with you here today on our continued series, Meet the Presenters, for the Fearless Fundraising Forum. We've got a great event coming up next week. We're just 6 days out from the Fearless Fundraising Forum happening October 20 and 21st. I am so excited about this lineup of speakers covering such an important range of topics, all together make up what it takes to run successful nonprofit community-based organizations. Today's speaker brings her firepower like we would expect from our Fearless Fundraising lineup. Nadya Rousseau is here with us today. I can't wait to bring her up on stage and introduce her. If you don't already know Nadya, she is a social media maven and running a fantastic company, New Alt Media, she's going to talk to us about in her expertise of purposeful partnerships. Join me welcoming Nadya to the Your Nonprofit Power stage. Hello, Nadya. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you as well, Amy. Thank you so much for having me. And just quick correction, we are Alter New Media, not New Alt Media.
Thank you. Alter New Media. Let's get that link down below so we make sure that we get folks to check it out, because we're talking about purposeful partnerships, which is a pretty unique part of your business model, right?
That's right. And, I've really enjoyed chatting about purposeful partnerships with you, Amy, and also running kind of a closed container experience for both nonprofits and for-profits interested in exploring their own purposeful partnerships. So in a nutshell, Purposeful Partnership is a strategic alliance between a nonprofit organization and a for-profit. Sometimes it can even be a nonprofit organization and an influencer, kind of like an ambassador. But either way, the goal is to, bring joint value to the table. And ultimately, at least how we've structured it to date, that for-profit will oftentimes absorb the majority of the costs that go into building out a successful campaign, because Purposeful Partnership, the goal is to have this be a long-term endeavor. However, sometimes it is a shorter-term endeavor. So whether it be shorter term or longer term, we expect and we advocate to our for-profit but mission-driven clients to look at doing a purposeful partnership with a aligned nonprofit. And so that involves setting up, marketing campaigns, PR, oftentimes bringing in influencers. So it's a really exciting opportunity for nonprofits, because again, you really don't have anything to lose here beyond having to commit to your participation in the purposeful partnership.
Yeah, it's really any way you can design it. And you've been working at this for some time, and I love the type of clients you attract, both the nonprofits you attract, but also the entrepreneurs and businesses you work with at a global level. They are purpose driven. There's obviously this unique part of your brand is just a part of your whole brand about being mission driven, purpose driven.
Yes.
What led you to? How'd you come up with that niche? What made you start the business in this vein and really attracting these clients?
Yeah, it's interesting, Amy, because it was never like, I sat down and like, this is going to be the approach of Alternate Media, because Alternate Media was originally created as a production company for a TV show that I was hosting and producing at the end of 2016 and going into the majority of 2017, which was all about different types of identities. It was called Nadya's Identity Files. So every week I had 2 interviewees and we would look at a theme of identity. And so I created the Alternate Media to essentially, be an entity to support any sponsorships that came in the door for the show. But at the same time, I was also growing my roster of social media clients. And, I think it's always been in me to want to give back and want to be very intentional with my efforts. And I've always been someone that likes to look for synergies in people. It was never something I necessarily really reflected upon. It was just always very intrinsic to be like, oh, you do this and you do that. Probably also because I spent so many years in the entertainment industry, as an actor and a model. And it's like you really have to network heavily to see any success at all in that world. And so it was just kind of became a habit. But fast forward to as alternate media began to evolve and also incorporate, different areas of marketing like strategy and social media and influencer and PR. I had a client in 2018 who was a hip hop artist. And as it turns out, she was also an avid snowboarder. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. How come you don't talk about this that much in your content? And she's like, well, I'm not really sure how to talk about it or how to like keep it from, I guess, detracting from my main brand, which is me
Or
as a
I
hip hop
wanna
artist.
be humble about it. That's the other thing I hear sometimes. I don't wanna come across as boastful or braggy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So she had that, those qualities for sure. So it's like, what about finding some sort of nonprofit that does something with snowboarding and finding a way for you to do something with them? And like, what about you became an ambassador? And so that just kind of came to me.
Yeah.
And then I found a nonprofit called the Chill Foundation, and they serve represented underserved youth through confidence building exercises, mostly through board sports. So in New York, which is where Miranda, the hip hop artist, resided,
Mhm.
the focus was indeed on snowboarding. And so we reached out, and Miranda is actually quite a talented snowboarder. It's not like she's just a novice, like she's really skilled. So we introduced her to this organization. And all of a sudden, I'm creating a structure. And in that initial structure, as we explored in our container, was to outline on both sides what are the mutual expectations. And it was really designed to have bring value to this nonprofit, but also look at how can we create this opportunity to really reposition Miranda as not just your everyday hip hop artist, but
Mhm.
one that is an avid snowboarder and gives back and has a big heart. And so we then got a bunch of kids once we solidified this
Mhm.
partnership. And
Mhm.
essentially she became an exclusive ambassador for all of Greater NYC with Chill Foundation. Got these kids in one of her music videos. That was super cool. She ended up raising a lot of money, and because Chill Foundation was founded by the Burton brand, she went on to become a Burton ambassador. And that
Okay.
has been huge for her brand. She's performed at Burton events. It's been transformational for her. And she's still an ambassador of Chill Foundation to this day, doing initiatives. So
Oh,
after
that's
that, it's like
great.
this,
Yeah.
there's something to this. And like, I have to expand on
It
this. And
really,
so,
yeah, really helped take off her visibility and her identity. I love how you were pulling in some different aspects of your journey, of your career, of your entrepreneurial and your life, and how it really does all come together under the company umbrella, and just your laser focus on those alliances, on those synergies. I think you use the
yeah,
word synergies. Yeah, that is like a talent when you can see that so clearly. That's not something I think everybody's operating at. But what's really unique and what I'm super excited about to talk about more next week in depth during the Fearless Fundraising Forum is the very specific process you walk people through. That's really the magic of we could call it the framework of the agreement, but it's how you move the
right.
groups through. That's where the relationships really get fostered. What I found.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like how do you actually move the needle forward together? And so much of that, of course, is around like setting those mutual expectations. Like, what is the goal of the nonprofit? What is the goal of the for-profit? Like both entities are trying to bring in revenue. Let's be honest. The nonprofit wants to bring in donors and donations. The for-profit needs new clients, new customers. So how can we reach common ground? How can we achieve impact together? And ideally in a way that's continuous and has longevity.
Yeah, and that requires an important level of transparency and honesty, which means you have to understand and get clear for yourself what you're looking to achieve.
Yes.
Right? There's nothing worse than going into negotiations with somebody who has not fleshed out what wins look like, because then
Oh no.
you're just shooting darts at what's that game at the fair with the balloons on the wall? That thing
Oh
was
yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at that game. But
that
yes.
and whack-a-mole. That's when I get in that business, like that's the visual that comes to my mind.
Right. Oh totally. Yeah. It's just painful at that point.
Um, here's a thing I'm curious about, and I'm wondering if any of our listeners are curious about too. Is so I work in partnerships certainly, right? And of course, as nonprofits, we know in engaging businesses, the traditional sponsorship model,
Mm-hmm.
and negotiated some more significant relationships. But I'm curious, what are some of the things that you find when you're looking at a client and you're saying this is a good fit for you, or you're seeing a nonprofit and you're thinking I really need I can see you matched up. What are you seeing in these folks that make you think, yep, they're ready for this? Does anything?
Ready specifically for a purposeful partnership?
Yeah, for people who end up being successful in pursuing this purposeful partnership model.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's ideal for the clients, like the for-profits, to have a clear mission. If they don't have a clear mission, then we are going to want to work on developing that further via a variety of branding exercises or even a new brand strategy. And then after that's been done, then we start to look at, really, how do you want to be different with this mission and how do you really want to bring it to life? And that's when, of course, it's a natural um, segue into purposeful partnership.
How
And then,
can we work with a nonprofit to help
yeah,
illuminate that side of the brand? Or
yes, exactly. 'Cause it's,
yeah,
and I tell them PR, now, of course, we
it's
have
not
a
just
very,
because they have a big heart. It's because they have a big heart and there's a
mhm,
good alignment. I got you. I got
exactly. They have a big heart, there's alignment, and we need good stories for PR. Like, because we approach PR in a way that's somewhat new school as well as somewhat old school. So we kind of are marrying these like new school ways of like guaranteed placements with traditional pitching approach, which is, kind of more of your old school approach, leveraging relationships and stuff like that, which a lot of the newer school publicists, they just do direct placements. That's it. They're not pitching, they're not doing like relationship building, they're not trying to create campaigns that are compelling and naturally interesting to writers or podcasters or just the media as a whole. And so I'm like, if we're creating a really exciting story that's going to generate compelling results,
you.
you
Yeah.
are going to get press, you're going to have a greater opportunity for press. Most companies are not doing this. So let's do something cool.
Yeah.
And
And make it different. Yeah. It's just cool all around, right?
exactly.
But I really like the honesty of what's in it for everybody. I can tell you from the nonprofit side, that tends to be the part they tend to forget about. Like, oh, wait, we really need to just be super clear that this isn't going to be a financial transactional win. Those are nice though, right? Like somebody
Right.
walks in with a big $10,000 check and it's like, thank you, photo op. But that's not
Right.
always how the money comes in. And in fact, not usual. Um, you build in some really interesting components of the partnership, right? Some different benefits, and audience sharing is a big part of that. Would you say that's one of the biggest gains that you've
I
seen?
think that is one of the biggest gains for sure. So, I mean, even let's say it's a mid-sized nonprofit and they actually have a very large donor base, relatively speaking, but the company, they might have some financial resources, but say they have minimal social media. So the benefit here is, you have a company that really wants to further substantiate their mission. They have financial resources to invest in a campaign and ads, marketing, PR, but they have this nonprofit, there's this nonprofit with this big base that has an audience that's really aligned with the company's values too. So
Yeah,
this company, even though they're investing, they're going to be benefiting from not just obviously the feel good factor, but dipping into the audience of the nonprofit. And the same could be said on the other side too. The nonprofit's going to benefit by dipping into the audience of the for profit. It's ideal for profits and nonprofits to be kind of on a similar wavelength in terms of size and audience and stuff. It doesn't have to be that way though. It's
yeah,
all about like how you are looking and evaluating the value that's being
yeah.
brought to the table.
Yeah, you have to be clear on why it's a good fit, but I hear you. There's flexibility in some of the. I've been working with some organizations lately, and when we get into the corporate relationship piece, it's always like, where's that fast money? And of course, there's the foundation route, right? Some corporations, businesses have a foundation arm, but in order to really approach somebody, it's not just the special event you might have to talk about, and it might not be their mission, but if you can check as many of the reasons of why they care, right?
Yeah.
Big part being one of them, audience share may or may not be another, but usually that is a big part of why a nonprofit is valuable, is
Mhm.
getting access to your credibility, your authority. And you
Exactly.
have to be really confident in that in order to sell that. That's much different than selling a banner or a number,
Yeah,
reserving a table. So I
exactly.
think it gets kind of fun when you map it out, and I call it the environmental scan, where we look at the who cares, right? Who cares for
Mhm.
social reasons, for moral reasons, for economic reasons, and sometimes it just makes sense as you brainstorm, right? You might not know the nonprofit or the business that's a good fit, but if you back it up and start thinking about the who cares, you might
Yeah,
say, gosh, healthcare organizations might really care about what we do. And
right.
you've built a cool health-based partnership. I know we've talked about a couple of
Yes.
times.
One of my favorites of
Great,
all time would definitely be the cooking doc, aka Dr. Blake Schusterman. Shout out to Dr. Blake
Dr.
out of Greenville, South Carolina, and he has a successful practice. He's a nephrologist, kidney doctor, and so when we started working with him, it was kind of a similar type of thing. How do we get you more buzz? How do we get you more audience growth?
Mhm.
How do we get you more authority while
Yeah,
also giving back because you're passionate about what you do. And so I was like, all right, let's look out for some kidney nonprofits. So we reached out to the American Kidney Fund, which is in fact the largest kidney organization in the US. And we were able to form a purposeful partnership with Dr. Blake and Kidney Fund, which is great.
that's a
It's been
huge,
amazing.
yeah, that's a huge brokered relationship. That I imagine it's a lot.
Exactly. And so he's contributed videos to their kidney kitchen, which is, like just healthy eating tips for their audience. We've had opportunities to get his book promoted to their list. Well, of course, he's done a lot of Q&As for like their audience, like people have questions about kidney health or diet, and he'll go and donate and volunteer his time on that. We've done co-branded campaigns, and we've also done PR around these campaigns, which has been great. And, when we started working with Dr. Blake, he had around 4,000 subscribers on YouTube. And
Mhm.
now, of course, we are doing a lot of production work for Dr. Blake's YouTube. We do about 1 to 2 videos edited a week. And we've been doing that for maybe 2 years now. His subscriber base is now over 100,000 subscribers. And I would have to say, that certainly has to do with
Those
his
are
great
amazing.
content, our
Yeah.
great editing skills, but I
Yes.
also think it has a lot to do with the partnership.
4,000 to over 100,000.
In under 2 years, yes.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really intentional, purposeful partnership. That's pretty amazing. And that is because you're really evaluating everything to be able to link it back to that relationship, both in the
Yeah.
branding, but also the audience growth.
His
It's just
engagement too on his Facebook page is like so high since doing this. And I don't
yeah,
think it's just because we're producing good content and he's producing great content. It's because of that exposure and that authority.
yeah, it sets you apart from your competitors. And if nonprofits aren't including that as part of the conversation when they're approaching businesses, I think that is where the message gets lost, right? Where we get
Yeah.
back to talking about transactional fundraising.
Yeah.
I Yeah, there's a lot of good examples. I know we're going to dig into. We're going to save even more of them. The influencer piece. I want to just touch base on one more thing, and then we're gonna invite everybody to register for the Fearless Fundraising Forum so that they
Yes.
can do the whole thing and get the great giveaway that you're providing. I know that you're sharing a resource with the audience. It is it. the influencer part, what the heck do you mean by an influencer? And because sometimes I think we get a little freaked out, like, I don't know if I'm, influencer sounds like a really big deal.
I know. Yeah, definitely. Like when you're looking at purposeful partnership again, you don't necessarily have to go straight to like an actual like entity, a company with like 100 employees, and that, might be a little intimidating to you perhaps, but maybe conversely, it's possible you're more intimidated by reaching out to an influencer than an actual corporation. I don't know. Either way, each way works. So when you're thinking about like, I would actually prefer a purposeful partnership with an individual person, more so an ambassador, but we can still frame it as a purposeful partnership because you can still build out a campaign with them and do all of the things that you would do with a company. So it just would look a little bit differently. Don't be intimidated, first of all.
Yeah.
Influencers, just the influencer space period is extremely saturated right now, just like realtors or online like business coaches.
Yeah.
It's saturated.
Got
And
you.
so, how do you differentiate? Like, influencers, and I tell influencers how you differentiate yourself is you show yourself that you actually have influence and you actually are trying to make an impact with your platform. And
Mhm.
when we represent influencers, because we have an in-house influencer talent division that's much like your traditional talent board of the old days, just actors or models, but this is influencer board. I
Mhm.
say you have to do at least one nonprofit campaign a year
Mhm.
or nonprofit ambassadorship in order to be signed with Alternate Media. And so, of course, yes, you can contact us and we can look at our own pool and make recommendations of who we think could be a great ambassador for you because they have to do it anyway.
And you
But, I
are.
want you to think about, like, for example, if you are a nonprofit that, say, is focused on sustainability, um, in some way or another. You're going to look for influencers who identify themselves as environmental activists, as, focus on sustainability and fashion, perhaps. Those are the types of people you're going to look for. You don't ever want to just be like, oh, influencer, like some random person. You want
Yeah.
to look for people who have made a concerted effort to establish themselves as having passion about the issue that your organization is focused on.
Yeah.
So when you're knowing that and you're reaching out, don't let it's not intimidating. These influencers in many ways they need the credibility. They need to show that they are about more than just monetizing with like knickknacks on their profiles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It really shows a further depth of just who they are as people. And influencers, even in your industry, right? So if you're in autism, look to see who
yes,
some of the leading influencers are that speak to issues around um,
exactly.
autism. And that's what you do in the purposeful partnership bubble. Nadia, I'm so excited. I am so grateful you're part of the Fearless Fundraising Forum, and it really does help kind of put on our fearless, uniform of we're worthy. We're going to get clear on what we bring to the table, and we're going to be good partners to our business partners and our corporate partners, and see how we can take things a little bit deeper beyond the event sponsorships. That's what I love about this model. You
Yes.
really help encourage and inspire folks to talk about their true power, what they bring to the table, and that goes a long way in building confidence.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm super stoked for next week. I'm going to be doing some more outreach on my side because I want as many people as possible to, be involved in this amazing event and get to know all of the speakers and you and the work that you do. If there's anything else I can do to support, you know where to find me. And thanks everyone for listening and tuning in today.
Nadia Russo. We'll talk to you soon. Stay fearless out there. Take care.
Bye.